of course, beyond that, we also need to look at certain important things. And I think these workshops will help us understand that what are those important key parameters that we need to consider when we are planning these implementations or when we are piloting these interventions, and then we are thinking of making these temporary solutions permanent. So, of course, one important aspect is that please consider those interventions that are appropriate for the right age groups. So, otherwise, the use or the usage of those interventions would not be to the desired level of outcome that you would require. So I think that is one thing that you need to consider when these interventions are being planned and implemented in the cities. Many a times you see a lot of equipments being installed in parks, in public spaces and all, but you also need to understand that whether these are being put to use or not. There are examples when a lot of equipment is placed in a park, but nobody is using them. Reason is that these equipments have to basically activate the right kind of sensory responses from the users, the children, and many a times it is not really considered as really engaging for the children or the user groups. So I'll give you an example. I think probably if you're looking at a slide or a swing, so this has been an experience in London when I had gone on a trip there, that a wider slide certainly becomes more interesting for the children to use because they can actually two or three children can actually play on them together. So look at those kind of considerations when you're even thinking of equipments, and not only equipment. Sometimes you don't even really require equipment, because what is required is the engagement of children with the sensory environment that they have around them. So even interventions like having water or sand around in a play space or a play area would be enough stimulus for the child to basically engage in or activate himself in. So look at these kind of interventions that allow children to explore, that enhance their creativity. And of course, what we are seeing in the initial phases, a lot of cities decided to take up interventions on streets such as painting. Now, these are good temporary interventions, but sometimes we need to look beyond that and also think of more permanent structures, more permanent infrastructure that we would like to build, something which will be used for on a long-term basis. And when we are building these infrastructure or new equipments, you also have to think about how you're going to manage all that. So try and build the right kind of stakeholders, engage with them, build teams around them, and think of the way of managing these assets that you're going to build in your cities. That should also be a part of the strategy when you're thinking of these neighborhood interventions. We have to, of course, pay attention when we are there in these workshops. So I will not take too much time, but what I would request all the city officials, please make best use of these workshops. And I know there are a lot of distractions. Sometimes we get distracted by WhatsApp messages, and sometimes there are other things to do on the screen. But then I guess the team of panelists that we have today for you bring with them a lot of experiences, a lot of use cases, and that is something that we would definitely like to learn from. And I'm sure they are trying to communicate something, and we can all, or we should all make an attempt to understand on what they are trying to communicate to us. So with that, I would hand it over to you, Nandini, to take the proceedings forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. Next, I would like to introduce one of our expert speakers for this session, the Program Director of Bernard Banlieue Foundation, Ms. Andrea Torres. Andrea has over 20 years of experience in managing and implementing social policies and programs, and over 10 years of experience in the early childhood development field. And before working with the foundation, she was the national coordinator for a comprehensive social protection program for early childhood at the Ministry of Social Development in Chile. So she brings with her as a wealth of experience and knowledge, and we're very happy to have you here, Andrea. I'd like to hand over to you now.
Thank you very much, Nandini, for that kind introduction. And it's a pleasure to share also the panel with the Director of Smart Cities, Rahul Kapoor. So thank you for that. Can you all see my screen well? Okay, that's perfect. So good afternoon to you all. As I was mentioning, I'm super delighted of joining. Let me start there. Okay, to join this third workshop on the Nurturing Neighborhoods challenges. Thank you for having me today and allowing me the opportunity to share some ideas of why designing and developing neighborhoods that support the well-being of infant, toddlers, and their caregivers are fundamental to nurture the brain development of young children. Okay, of course, this is okay. Now, sorry, I was having trouble. Can you imagine that we are still having troubles to manage on Zoom or Meet Teams? Anyway, sorry about that. I imagine that you have seen this question many times, and I thought it was nice to bring it back because the Nurturing Neighborhoods Challenge is all about you and your city teams trying to answer this question. If you could experience the city from 95 centimeters, the height of a healthy 3-year-old, what would you change? So this is an invitation to have a very quick journey on why we pose this question, on why it is so important to consider infant toddlers and their caregivers' needs, and why, if you accept this question, if you accept to answer this question, actually, you will be contributing not only to the optimal development of young children, but also to the well-being of each one of the children and the people that lives in your cities. So, the importance of early years. The early years of a child's life are critical in determining their future. From pregnancy to around the age of 5, children's brains and bodies develop faster than at any other point in life. There is no better window of opportunity to transform a child's outcome. The impact of the early years are profound, long-lasting, and touch all aspects of life, from learning potential to future health. So what does the evidence from public health, neurosciences, and economics tell us? Clear and simple. Investing in babies and children's early years is the best investment that you and the whole society can do. Supporting young children can translate to better health outcomes, greater ability to learn and work with others, higher incomes in adulthood, just to name a few benefits. So child development is an outcome. It's the continuous process of acquiring the skills and the abilities to live a healthy life. It is during these critical years that children develop their motor, cognitive, linguistic, physical, and socio-emotional skills. Actually, child development is essentially the development of the brain. Just one quick fact, brain is made of neurons. Every one of us is born with about 100 billion of neurons. And these neurons are connected by synapses. And everything that we do, what we think, what we feel, what we do, what we remember, emerge from the flow of these connections and synapses. And as you can read in the slide, 1 million synapses are created in a baby's brain every second. But babies and toddlers' brain need the right ingredients for healthy development. And today, over 250,000, million of children under 5 do not receive those ingredients, those right ingredients and support to reach their full potential. And just to reinforce that this is a good investment, please look at the estimated return for every dollar that we spent on high quality early years program, between $6.40 and $17 of return. If you go to the stock market, probably you will not get that amount of return for your investment. So this is really a great investment to do. So, sorry, I have somebody that is trying to, okay, early experiences shape the brain. The brain develops at its most rapid pace in the first years of life. Remember that I mentioned that the brain is made of neurons, and as the brain develops, the connection between these neurons are shaped and altered in response to positive but also negative experience. And what are some of the examples of these kind of experiences? And how does a baby get in touch and being affected by them? So, for optimal brain development, infants and toddlers need good nutrition, sensory and motor stimulation, a safe environment, opportunities to play, and proper health care. Negative experience such as violence, stress, exposure to pollution can significantly hamper the optimal development of a child. So children need plenty of love and attentive care from their caregivers. When parents or other caregivers talk, sing, play with their babies, they are helping to build a healthy brain that is wired to learn and interact with others. And the best way of giving children a healthy start and an opportunity to develop their full potential is to support the people that cares for them. That is parents, caregivers, mothers, etc. This means helping parents and caregivers manage issues which might negatively impact their children, like stress, poor parental mental health, and good practices like breastfeeding and being attentive to the needs of their children. But it also means to promote and support caregivers to have access to good quality, accessible health, education, and city services, to have access to positive experiences that can support caregivers to actually raising their children. So, a good start in life. We have already mentioned that early experiences and environments can have a lifelong effects. Just if you look at this slide, you can see a few examples from research that show us some concrete impacts. Like, for example, health. Significant adversity in childhood is connected to an increased range of adult health problems, including diabetes, hypertension, strokes, obesities, and even sometimes of cancers. Education. Studies have shown that stunted children who receive home visits promoting caregiving, infant play, and verbal interaction had significantly better long-term outcomes in school attendance, college education, and income as adults. I have already mentioned the economics, but also let's see at the environment. A healthy and inclusive environment is essential for babies, toddlers, and those who care for them. Access to nature and clean air leads to better development and improve caregiver well-being. So babies, toddlers, and caregivers experience the city differently. How can we support babies, toddlers, and caregivers that they can have all the support they need in each one of the cities where they live, where you and your family lives? First of all, understanding that young children and their parents really live and experience the city differently, either finding joy and playing at any place, even better if it's suitable for that, or dealing with the stress or trying to cross a street where cars don't respect pedestrians. So in this slide, you have a young girl playing with sand. On the other side, you have a mother trying to cross a street. And let me tell you that these are photos from your country. I was trying to look at them. So some other facts about babies and toddlers. Babies absorb 4 more air pollution than adults, and exposure starts during pregnancy. Toddlers need the double amount of time to cross streets compared to able-bodied adults. And I'm pretty sure that most of the cross streets are not suitable for babies, toddlers, and their caregivers. And young children's experience reduce stress and better physical and mental development when they have regular access to nature. So reinforcing the idea of what babies and toddlers and their caregivers need in terms of a city. And I have mentioned it quite a lot. Caregivers are absolutely crucial. Probably I will repeat it until you get very bored of this, because they are crucial. How many of you are parents, grandparents, aunts, aunties, or just care for a baby or a toddler? You know that babies and toddlers do not go around cities by themselves. They need caregivers and parents, and those are the ones deciding where babies and toddlers go and for how long. When caregivers go out with young children, they can create the opportunities for nurturing the brain of their babies and toddlers, such as play, talk, storytelling, singing, love, or just by showing a tree with some colors, as this grandparent is doing. Can caregivers find opportunities in your city for making those healthy connections? Are your cities welcoming and nurturing places? Do caregivers feel safe in your cities? Having cities that are designed for the well-being of caregivers have a defining impact on a child. So I was mentioning caregivers are crucial. Services and social support networks that allow caregivers to have the time, the energy, and the opportunities to engage and respond to their babies and toddlers' needs are fundamental. Just imagine if a caregiver has to ride a bus for almost 2 or 3 hours to go from their home to their workplaces, and they have to come back 3 hours more or 2 hours more. Do you think that they will feel like, oh, let's play, let's say, let's sing, or let's tell a story? Probably not. So how can we improve mobility, for example? So the goal is how we can make healthy connections. That is better urban environments in our neighborhoods and cities in general. So please take a look very quickly to those examples and all the amazing opportunities that you have to create and support healthy interactions between children when they play, between caregivers when they meet in the public square, or between neurons when a pregnant woman is talking to another pregnant woman, and some of those examples that you are seeing there. So what does it mean taking a toddler's perspective? Look at this example I already mentioned. Can you make it the light? And here there are very concrete examples of how can take a toddler to actually cross the street when compared with other people. And of course, most of the time, these timings are thought by for an adult that is going very fast in the city. On this other example, if you are going from your home to your work, you'll take a straightforward journey. You'll probably not stop, maybe to buy a coffee, but most of times cities are designed to facilitate this only journey. But what happened on the right side, my right side, when a caregiver, most likely a woman, pregnant or mothers, go out with babies and toddlers. If she needs to go to a crèche or to a health center, she'll probably need to stop in different parts, either because she's taking advantage of that moment and doing several other things, or also because the toddler wants to stop at everywhere and they want to play and they want to explore, or maybe they are just tired or whatever. So those are very different perspective, and we need to think not only on the lone person peak commute, but also on the journeys of a mother or a pregnant woman or a caregiver. So let me go back, I'm almost finishing. Let me go back to the Urban 95 question. Now that you know the importance, at least very general, of the brain development for babies, toddlers, and how it is impacted by positive or negative experience, and that caregivers are essential in shaping their young children's brain development, and that is a big source of positive or negative experience that come from living in a city, for experiences a city. So then I would pose this question to you. What would you change from your city if you could have the power, which you have, to do it? So when you are a city leader, planner, manager, you are making a decision that works for infant, toddlers, and their caregivers. You are not only contributing to a productive, healthy future generation, but also you are making a decision that has an impact today. So again, how are you going to create a neighborhood where your children, your nephews, your nieces, your grandchildren, your granddaughters, and children in general can feel safe, can explore, can play, can engage with the built and the natural environment? And of course, you don't need to start from the scratch. You already have a lot of things in each one of your cities. The question is, how do we change our mindset? How do we integrate the toddlers and babies' perspective and their caregivers' needs? So of course, we are hoping that you can design for the well-being of babies, that you can design for caregiving and promoting this healthy interaction, knowing that proximity matters in terms of services and social support, and how can we think babies as an inclusive design principle with also a equity lens in each one of our cities. I will not go over this. You can review it later. This is our Urban 95 manifesto that I really hope that you feel comfortable and represents what you are looking for. And let me just share a last quote from the Vice President that I really found very inspiring. And it is in one of the documents from the Smart Cities mission, which is urban planning and development must enhance talent, creativity, and aspiration of children. So that is the challenge. And thank you so much for allowing me to share very quickly. And I'm sorry, I think I'm past time, Nandini, so sorry about that, but it has been a pleasure, and I'm going to be with you the whole session. So thank you.
Thank you, Andrea, for this really important background and reminding us of these principles. We will, as you said, we'll have you also joining the breakout groups, and you'll have a chance to sort of move through the groups and share your insights after the session as well. But now going from this sort of foundation into the principles of applying thinking through the design of the pilot projects that all of the cities are working on, I would like to introduce my colleague, Madhura Kulkarni, Senior Project Associate at WRI India. She will be sharing a presentation, a short presentation on this before we break into groups. So Madhura, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Nandini. Thanks, Andrea, for that wonderful presentation. I'll just share my screen. Yeah, can you see?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So now that Andrea has laid us a foundation of, why is it important to design spaces for young children? In this presentation, we'll be looking at different ways to design spaces for young children.
Madhura, it's not in presentation mode yet.
Yeah. You can see it now, right?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so before we move down to how to design spaces for young children, let's look at a few images. So how would you feel walking through the space with a young child versus would you feel better here? So what has design done really? It has changed the way we experience the space, right? How do young children experience space? So Andrea has actually talked about a lot of examples that how they perceive that space very differently. And so it's very important for us to understand needs of ITCs. So ITCs are infant toddlers and their caregivers. Why is it important? Because they are always with their caregivers. They are very vulnerable to air, water, and sound pollution. Thus, while we want to design neighborhoods for them, we need to define where do we intervene. What are these young children priority zones? So where we locate, where they frequently visit in the neighborhood, we find out the priority locations. Then we actually understand, the area around it, priority zone of, sort of 500 meters around these locations, and define a priority zone to then identify strategies and demonstrate some solutions. So when we come down to the solutions, we need to, or while we develop solutions, we need to integrate projects with their surroundings to enhance overall experience for these children and their caregivers, which talk about safety, accessibility, and walkability around this space as well. Now, we should also consider these ITC and objective, which is infant toddler, which are objectives for designing neighborhoods for young children and their caregivers, which is safe, green, playful, inclusive, and accessible neighborhood. Now, when we are designing environments suitable for young children, so like Andrea mentioned that, there are various ways or various activities that children learn during different phases of their lives. So, for example, it's crawling, standing, walking, ability to squat, kick a ball, these things. So basically they start developing gross and fine motor skills. So, and of course, many other skills depending, and it depends on, every child. Every child's development is different. But what we can do is we can have spaces to facilitate these kind of development of skills. So such that, and even these small 0 to 3-year-old children, they are very much dependent on their caregiver. So more spaces for them to interact or bond with their caregivers should be important. They start learning through interacting senses. So we should give opportunities for them to interact, for example, with plants. So these kind of so that we stimulate their senses basically. And then as they become toddlers, they start making groups. Their activities are more about coordinations. They do imaginative play. They jointly manipulate objects. So basically their skills, they develop further. They also develop linguistic skills at this time. So can our interventions help facilitate that? Can we have more open spaces which can be manipulated with them, or they can facilitate more of a group play? Then these are few things which we should have in our spaces, like there should be natural materials like sand, water, there should be plants where they can interact, see, touch, feel them. So these are few things which we should have. Now, after looking at these spaces, do we think this is enough? Is this enough? Have we, like, even in the introduction, Rahul Kapoor sir talked about, have we ever seen parks which are unused after some time? So why do these parks or gardens are unused? Sometimes because they are not open for enough time. Sometimes they are not very, usable or comfortable spaces. Sometimes they're just not safe for women. So how do we make it usable? How do we target these behaviors? So to do that, we need to create a conducive system of conducive system around it to understand who are the users, identify stakeholders so that everyone is aligned. Then we induce supportive behavior amongst the service providers. Like, for example, traffic police need to have priority for these children and caregivers while they are crossing. They should ensure there is no speeding happening nearby. The park is then, of course, the maintenance people should maintain the park periodically. They should, and then of course the park can be kept open for a longer time. So basically, and also creating sense of ownership and support from the community where they look out for young children. So basically, we are enabling behavior change as an objective for designing for young children to make these spaces that we design work. So overall, more or less, all the projects that we have been doing in these 25 cities, they more or less fall in these 4 domains, which are streets, public spaces, improving access to early childhood services, and adapting public spaces with early childhood amenities. So let's do a deep dive into how some of these spaces that we see in Indian scenario, how can we design that? So these are some of the scenarios to do that. So this is the first scenario where there's a crossing in front of an Anganwadi. So how do we design it? So there has to be a barrier between footpath and road so that the child doesn't cross over and go towards the vehicle. There has to be a tabletop crossing with traffic calming measures, a refuge space for these pedestrians or these caregivers with young children to pause while they cross the road. Then some streets have gray areas occupied by parking and vending. Can we reorganize this space near these ECD facilities, the early childhood development facilities such as Anganwadis or public health clinics or kindergartens? Can we reorganize space near these facilities to develop a multi-utility zone where tired caregivers, sometimes they are tired just because they are walking with the child along with them? Can we create some pause points? Can we create some seating spaces at different heights for children, and the children also get some activities to interact, such as activities such as sandpits or some sort of a play space where they can actually engage. Now, we don't have wide streets everywhere, right? Sometimes we have a very narrow lane leading to an Anganwadi. So in that case, how do we design? So maybe we can have a slow street there. It can be designed to have a slow street, a curb extension, which can facilitate waiting areas for caregivers who have come to pick their child up. Then now there are instances where we have footpaths. There is always a fear of child running towards the vehicle or getting exposed to the pollutants coming from the vehicle at their height. So how can we design it? So there are a couple of ways to do it. One way is to have a thick vegetation that can help create a barrier, making footpaths safe, as well as creating opportunities for children to engage with nature. They get to touch and feel these plants. So we should be very sensitive about what sort of plants are we planting at these edges as well. And also it can have some engaging wayfinding or colorful patterns on the floor for them to engage, and also places for caregivers to rest. This is another way we can design a footpath where there could be a playful railing, there could be some space for unstructured play such as sandpits, stepping stones, and also a sitting space for caregivers. This is an example of in Pune where they've incorporated play in the footpath while keeping the play space very much clear and unobstructed. Now, looking at public spaces, first thing we should look at is the access to the public spaces. So access to these gardens or parks should have tabletop crossing with traffic calming measures, a clear, nice wide footpath with a buffer between the footpath and the carriageway or the road, and a waiting space near the entrance. When we move inside, there has to be clear walkways with comfortable sitting at different heights, at different intervals, and also have natural elements to encourage sensory play, because we have now talked a lot about why it is important to stimulate the senses. Now, if we look at these smaller infants, 0 to 3 year old, these infants, they tend to spend more time interacting with their caregivers, right? So such unstructured spaces where we have these sand pits and all, so these help interactions such as storytelling, some flexible play, and such spaces should also be shaded for thermal comfort. And as they become toddlers, the infants become toddlers, they learn through interaction, coordination. So play which is specific to which is very interesting for them, of play which helps them grow, such as mounds, some ropes to climb. There are different textures of sand, grass, water, and then of course water fountains, which are like playful kind of elements. These can overall help in their brain development, and having proper signages, walkways to access this, also some sitting spaces overlooking these areas would be important. Now, this is another instance which we sometimes find that there's a residual space in between, or an unused space between two buildings, which is generally used for parking or for littering garbage. So such residual spaces can be converted into public space by clustering various activities, by involving communities to make them safe and interactive. This is an example of a garbage dump being converted into a public space for children in Delhi. Now, looking at the access to early childhood services like Anganwadis or public health clinics or kindergartens, this is an example of a space in front of kindergarten. And there are some topographies in our cities have make these steps important to for access. So in such cases, what can we do? So we can how to design spaces in front of Anganwadis or public health clinics is by defining walking areas. We can ensure safe crossings. We can have waiting spaces or engaging activities for children. Sometimes we come across with dead walls. So then can these dead walls be designed to make them interactive by activating their edges and providing railings at the height of young children so that they can hold and they can climb the stairs. In terms of amenities, so like bus stops can be designed with amenities such as toilets, drinking water, diaper changing units, feeding stations, along with safe crossings and waiting areas near the bus stop. And these waiting areas can have some engaging elements such as green and playful elements for children to engage as well. And of course all these amenities not while hampering the flow of the footpath or the clear width of footpath for walking. So this is a way of transforming a waiting space into a play and learn opportunities. So can we find out these opportunities in our cities and have these services in a way that they don't obstruct footpath? Like this has an access, this feeding booth has an access from footpath but doesn't really obstruct the movement. So overall, what are those key points to remember while we design for young children? It is about providing safe and convenient pedestrian zone around early childhood facilities and these services. We should reduce speed of traffic in these areas. We should make it easy for them to navigate using wayfinding signages or different kinds of very legible signages. They enhance their sensory experience, make them visible. They're small. They maybe a driver won't be able to see them. So how can we make them visible? Like for example, while crossing the street, provide safe and clean essential amenities such as these feeding rooms, diaper changing units. How can we provide we should provide safe and clean amenities. We should create opportunities to engage with natural elements. We should ensure comfortable environment and also age appropriate play spaces. again, I now want to go back to the point which we discussed earlier, that is just designing these physical spaces enough? So while we saw that design of spaces is never enough, and until we have positive behavior change. So how to do that? How to enable positive behavior change? To have it, we need to map local ecosystems. We need to form groups of caregivers, residents, local leaders, ECD experts, all of them. Then create a local champion who can communicate and voice their opinions. We should do some capacity building as well as training sessions for them, so that they are able to communicate exactly what we should be communicating. Then, of course, we should incorporate suggestions from these different groups while we do our design, and involve community, NGOs, college students to implement these solutions. What it does is it creates a sense of ownership. And of course, while we create this, while there is this sense of ownership, it makes our projects self-sustaining. Thus, I guess the physical behavior changes, these together help us design towards creating a healthy environment for young children and their caregivers. Thank you. Now I would request Nandini, if you can break us. Let's move on to the breakout room activity that we have planned. So we'll be doing a deep dive into how to design solutions around different scenarios, and how to look at behaviors around those projects as well. So I would request Nandini to break us out into different groups, and yeah, we'll take it forward there. Thank you,
Thanks.
everyone.
Yeah, there's 4 groups, so I'm just splitting everyone up now. It should take a couple of seconds as you move into the groups.
Okay, so how many of us are there? I think we all of us are there, right?
Yeah, I think we have
Okay.
3, 4, 5.
Okay. Okay, so so we'll start. I'll just quickly share my screen. Can you see my screen? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so in this breakout room activity, what we are going to do is we have a scenario, we have a story of Raji, who walks with her children to Anganwadi. So this is so we'll be going through that story, and then we'll start looking at what are different issues she's facing. How can we develop solutions around it? What are those behaviors we want to target? So just before moving to that, I'm sorry, I forgot one thing, that we need to introduce everyone in the group. Let's do that first.
Yeah, so we already have Andrea in our group, and we also have Aishwarya. So let's go alphabetically. Aishwarya, can we start with you? Could you please go ahead and introduce from which city you are representing? All right. Should we? Okay. Let's move on to the next person, Debajyoti Dam. Sir, could you please go ahead and introduce yourself?
Just mention your name and the city you're representing. That's all.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah, this is
Hi.
Debajyoti Dam. Hi. I'm from Agartala Smart City Limited.
Okay. Hi. Welcome.
Hi.
Okay. And then we have Erode, Erode Smart City. Could you please go ahead?
Hello, sir. So we can't hear you.
Sir, we can't hear you.
I think there's some audio issue, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Okay, but sir, we would like to request you to keep your video on, I think, so that all of us can see you also at the same time.
Yeah, we can't really hear you, but yeah, welcome to the.
Sanjeev Saini. So if you're speaking, you're muted. If you could please unmute yourself. All right. Let's just quickly move on for the sake of.
Sorry, there's an issue with the breakout group function. I'm just trying to resolve it. 1 second, because everybody is still in the main meeting, I think. Yeah.
Oh, we are in the main meeting.
Just give me a second.
So let's test it. Everybody unmute themselves. Everybody, this is your opportunity to speak out and say your name. Let's see if this is working or not.
Yeah, so who do we have from Surat Smart City?
Please speak up, sir or ma'am, whoever is on the other side.
Okay, there's somebody from KSCTL.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, myself Tepa from Kohima Smart City.
Hello, sir.
Let's go into the presentation. Yes, we are working on our pilot locations. The thing is that in our city, the available space that we have identified for the pilot interventions are really small. So we're still finding ways to make optimum utilization of the available spaces.
Okay, great to know that, sir. So let's have some ideas. Let's get you some ideas through this workshop. Who else, Arunima? Who is left?
I think we are done, Madhura, except for Erode, and Aishwarya, who's not spoken up, but I think we can begin.
Okay. So let's begin with our breakout activity. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So a quick housekeeping points that the length of this activity is 45 minutes, and so we'll have a unique scenario where we would like to we would be reading out a story, and we would like you to observe it carefully, and of course help us fill certain templates for that. Also, feel free to unmute yourself and share your observations whenever you would like to, or if you can also share it in the chat box. And also, it would be nice if you can keep a pen and paper to note down a few observations if you would like to. And towards the end, we will nominate one of our participants to present overall findings of the group in the main session. So let's get down to our story. So this story is about a street in a city where Raji lives with her infant and her 2-year-old toddler. So Raji is a construction worker and she lives in an informal settlement. She is a mother of 2, an infant and a 3-year-old toddler. Every morning, she walks her toddler son to Anganwadi while carrying her infant in arms through the street on the way to her work. So she's walking down the street every day with her toddler as well as her infant. She enjoys walking with her children since it is the only time she can interact or play with them. Now, while she's walking, she gets tired due to long and tedious walk, especially during summers. While walking, her toddler touches objects he finds along the way and even tends to run towards speeding vehicles. She feels scared to walk with her children late in the evening when she goes back home. So is a short, small story of Raji walking through this particular street. And if you see, these are images of that street, which is coming from her house and going to the Anganwadi. So looking at these pictures, what issues Raji and her child would face while walking on the street? Let's hear it from all of you. Anyone who wants to start?
Debajyoti, Sanjeev, Singh, anyone who would like to go ahead and start?
So I will be writing it on these images, the kind of issues you would list. Anyone who wants to start?
Okay, I'll start with the first thing. Probably so she doesn't feel safe because cars are also running past, and at the same time there's no walking space for her. Okay, so someone has raised from the team's team. Yes, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
The conflict between right of way, because the street does not have a proper right of way. It's not showing the pedestrianization or that particular thing. It's only emphasis on the vehicular movement and the improper tactile of the surface, the nala edge, the smell from coming that particular drain.
Yeah. Smell from the drain, yes.
Maybe mosquito or maybe some diseases will spread across that particular neighborhood due to the improper drainage, and there are some construction waste also lying next to the drainage.
Yes.
Do you think there are any, so because there are also no seating spaces along the way, right? So, and Raji is walking with two children, they might also get tired.
No shaded walkway.
Yeah.
Anyone else would like to, who can point out some other issues they think?
Now that someone said that there's no shade, if we see there's some shade here, so can we look at this as an opportunity, to create those kind of, because in our story, she also says that she gets tired during summer, right? So can we find opportunities here? Yeah, maybe there are some opportunities where we can define that. Anything else? So I think Arunima, you mentioned about having no pause points.
Yeah.
Or seating places.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we'll come back to this. Anyone wanted to say anything? Please go ahead.
The team from Vinod Smart City and Aishwarya, Sanjeev Saini, please go ahead and speak up.
So can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
I think perhaps if I can alter sort of the format slightly. Sir from Kohima was actually hoping to perhaps, he was saying that the city, they have very small spaces. So maybe we can sort of just pivot a little bit and help him brainstorm what the kinds of spaces that he's struggling with and give him ideas. Just use the same format, but, so that we can help problem solve on demand.
Yeah,
So
that's a good idea.
Just mentioned about the opportunity to introduce IPT. So Kohima just wrote that about in the chat.
Can you explain that a little?
So please go ahead and unmute yourself and you can talk about that issue once.
What was that, Arunima? Can you say that again?
So he's written finding opportunity to introduce IPT.
Yeah. So this is not an issue, but then we can come back to this while we discuss different solutions which we can implement in this area. Yeah. So let's move on and think about, we spoke a lot about behaviors in our presentation, right? So what are those behaviors we would like to target? What positive behavior change we want to bring about? Any ideas? Like, positive behaviors could just be, that she feels safe while walking on the street. So this is something we want to change, right? Or this is the positive behavior we want to target. Anything? Anyone?
Or probably simply that, the drivers start driving slowly when they see pedestrians on the street. Simple things like that. Kohima, Tipa sir, would you please like to go ahead and or what do you think might be a good positive change that might be brought about here?
Kohima sir, could you unmute yourself? Maybe you can speak.
Okay, so let's do you want to go back to our story, where we say that where she's telling us that while walking, her toddler touches objects and that he finds along the way, or that also that she gets tired during summers. So is it that we want to look at how we can provide those spaces to relax when she gets tired? Or some spaces or opportunities for her to relax.
So we can probably, like you said, Mathura, we can probably think about some kind of thermal comfort, or because right now she's walking the entire stretch. So can we think about in that lines that?
Yeah, and probably something around that she also says that she enjoys walking with her children, right? So how do we do that? Or she gets some opportunities to engage, probably, like we talked about having thermal comfort on the street, or because she loves that, right? She enjoys, because that's the only time she spends. So probably having opportunities to engage or play with her children, or interact with her children more.
Yes.
Anything from cities?
Please speak up, everyone. It would be really good to hear all of your ideas, because
and it's fine if it is not right.
Yeah,
it's okay.
No right and wrong in this. So please speak up about anything that you have in mind. We would really like to hear from you guys rather than just talking by ourselves. Devajyoti, do you have something in mind about any kind of change that we might want to bring about?
Well,
Hello.
we also
Hello.
have Surat Smart City. Yeah, please go ahead.
Hello, I'm from Kochi.
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah. So if she walks in a long way, then we need to provide some green spaces or shadow spaces for resting, or because she's not walking alone she's walking with her child, so they must need some spaces or some relaxing spaces or some.
That's a very good point.
So we can provide that. It can't be in a complete stretch, but some spaces we can find out and put something.
Yeah. So let's say opportunities to rest and relax, and how to do that, like you mentioned about green. Let's talk in detail about those kind of solutions while we look at these. Now let's move down to solution now that you have already started talking about it. So then what are different solutions to achieve these positive changes? We want her to feel safe. We want, so for that, we are targeting that vehicular speeds. So anyone, let's start with what you said about having shade, green and shade, right? Anything anyone wants to say? What solutions can we adopt? anything?
Do we want to make her walking more safer? So how do we do that? I think earlier in the issues, the representative from cities team, he said that it's not safe, there's no demarcated walkway. So how do we go ahead and what kind of solution do we propose?
Also, like, okay, just to, to the point what Jinal mentioned, that, we should also help in looking at what to do when we have these small spaces. So for example, there's a transformer, right? And she says that her child touches different things around. So probably that is also something which is there. We see this in a lot of cities. If we don't have too much space, can we at least look at, making these spaces safe, like creating a barrier around these transformers so that those children don't directly go and touch them. So, these kind of solutions can we look at while we are walking, and, there are we come across some instances like these. So, I would suggest that, we can look at that as well.
Student Smart City has just written in the chat, he's suggesting
Mm-hmm.
cover the transformer with some kind of fencing or something. Sir, ma'am, whoever is there on the other side, please go ahead and if you have any other solutions in mind. So you can also see that there is an open drain which is very unsafe for young toddlers or babies. So do you think we can do some kind of solutions regarding that? Aishwarya, do you think Aishwarya Devajyoti,
Anything, any interventions that you think we can do? Very simple. It could be very simple. Like, we need a designated walkway, right?
Yeah.
We need a footpath here.
All right. Surat Smart City, they said another solution is to cover the drain with some kind of a roof and some seating facility on top of it can be provided.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Anything that anyone can think about regarding the footpath? Like, clearly there's no footpath. How can we, what kind of a footpath do we want to put here? What does the footpath need to have?
We could have just, small parklets along the way. You have almost like a walking zone, but small parklets along the way that are shaded, that you have places to sit and a little bit of play, perhaps. Yeah, install street lights and
yes. So now that we are talking about the security part of it, I also feel that this dead wall which is there along the street, maybe that is also one reason why she feels scared, right? In the evenings, there's nothing. There's dead wall. So can we look at probably activating these edges? How do we activate? So one idea is like, what even Jinal mentioned about having parklets, so that there's some interaction happening at these spaces, because right now there is no activity. So probably activating edges, right?
Yeah. So what does activating edges also mean, right? I think not just painting the walls might not be sufficient. Planting the walls might not be sufficient. You want the walls to be porous. You want them to open up a bit more. So maybe as part of your design guidelines, you have that, you should not have absolute dead walls. They should be a little bit more porous. There should be more openings in the wall, especially if it's a public use. If it's a park or something, then you don't want to have full tall concrete walls with bricks, or you want to have visibility to look into a park, or if it's a public space, or even if it's a school, you want more visibility, more eyes on street.
Yeah. So can we also make this part of our positive behaviors that we need to ensure eyes on street?
Madhura, Surat has
Yeah.
also given another suggestion where the electric wiring and the entire utility part of it can be probably done underground, so that any kind of accident or electrocution.
Yeah. Yeah. Making all these services underground so that these children are safe and they don't fall off or touch wrong things.
I just want to address the IPT comment
Mhm.
made by some. Like we see, the road is very narrow, so having a separate bicycle lane or might be difficult at this point. So what we can do is control the speed of the vehicles. That is perhaps the only thing that we can do to have different modes of transport, as well as make pedestrians feel safe. So definitely having some sort of demarcated, uninterrupted walking space, but you can't control the types of vehicles. It will have to be mixed.
Material change road painted signages can help to indicate the vehicles that they need to drive slow here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's call it, like demarcate spaces for vulnerable road users. Now these also have pedestrians as well as cyclists, if we have, right?
May just call them demarcated pedestrian way, like.
Okay.
What is the difference? Yeah.
Does anyone else have any other possible solution ideas?
Okay, so if not, let's look at how to.
Sorry,
Yeah,
could I
please.
one more idea? If this is a dead street in some sense, maybe we want to activate it with any kind of commerce. But it's a chicken and an egg thing. You might not be able to put commerce where there is not much pedestrian activity, but maybe a little bit of small commerce also attracts pedestrian activity. So that is the call that you'll have to take depending on the surrounding use. But it's part of bringing more eyes on street. Just be small pop-up shops. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Now let's go do a little deeper dive into how to make these interventions very specific to young children and caregivers. Like for example, let's take footpaths. Now we agreed on, yes, this needs a clear demarcated footpath, but then how to make it young children specific. Any ideas on that? Someone just said that there is no defined carriageway, so children might just run on the carriageway. So having a buffer between this road and this walkway is a very essential thing when we are designing for young children, right?
So probably if we have a green buffer, then we can make sure that the plants are either flowering plants, or they can be at the height of the young children, so like around 95 centimeter or 1 meter. Or if we want to simply put a railing, then the railing can have some kind of element, like a playful element or something, like we saw in the visuals earlier, some kind of an abacus kind of thing, which can also engage the children in one way or the other. It just cannot be a simple railing without any.
Yeah. Anything you would think that that's very essential if we are designing for these small children?
Does anyone have any suggestions? You can write in the chat, or please unmute yourself and
Can we have legible signages which actually say traffic coming, speed limits?
Yes. Or drive slow. Simple things like that. Yeah.
On footpath, what else? What else would you like to see? Any ideas? Please speak out.
You can even write on the chat.
Yeah.
So we're almost at the end of this now, Madhura and Arunima.
Yeah, the next one is yeah, we just have one more slide, and we're done. Okay, so fine. Let's look at what is the other aspect which we can look at from these children's perspective. I think we talked about having spaces to relax. Someone mentioned, I think from Kochi, you mentioned about having relaxing spaces, right? So how to design that? Does just only putting a bench near on the road, does that make really a space which is relaxing, or for children, or like for these sort of infants, toddlers and their caregivers? But no, right? It's not just that. It's also about these spaces. They have to be clustered around, so that clustered seating where different caregivers can come together and talk, probably. So clustered seating. Then we also, just not just that, but it has to be shaded, right? This seating has to be shaded. It's not just about having a bench, but also these seating can be at different heights, right? So as when you have a child, that child can also sit. You can also sit together. You can also interact with other such people. And generally, in these kind of settlements, you have that community engagement. So can we facilitate that? So maybe seatings at different height.
Madhura, Aishwarya from Kochi has written that we also need to consider specially abled toddlers.
Yes, that's a very good point. That
So Aishwarya, what do you think when we start considering specially abled toddlers? What kind of design solution do you think should we keep in mind? Any ideas?
I don't have any idea right now, but still I need to. It just came in my mind, so I thought that we should be considered in that way also. So.
Yeah, that's a very good point, so that we can ensure, universal accessibilities. And when we ensure these ramps, what we can do is we can provide ramps where they can, access different things that we have designed, these rest spaces, wherever required. Then these footpaths also, like we were discussing about footpaths, no? So just to incorporate what you said, so these footpaths also have to have ramps wherever required. Yeah. Slope should be, so slope should be, slope should be there in a way that, these children should be able to walk freely. Yeah. Slope for specifically.
Possible, right? It can't be very steep, like 1:10.
Yeah, so it should be at least 1:15 to 1:20, so that these children, because as a child also, when in between 0 to 2 years old, you start actually slowly climbing these slopes, you start even climbing stairs with support. So these things are very important, that we have these kind of ramps and slopes to for making their walking safe.
Madhura, we are left
and fun.
Around 5 minutes, so I think
okay, so then let's move to the last part of this. Like we discussed, that it's not just about designing that space or putting certain equipment or putting some seating space in that space, but you have to look at overall how we are targeting that behavior. So to target that behavior, we need to consult a lot of people in this, right, to make this design work. We discussed in the presentation also. So what do you think? Who would be those stakeholders? Who should we consult while we design for this project, this street project, who would you consult?
So imagine this as a street design project that you want to do in your city. I think a lot of cities are taking up street design projects as part of the challenge. So which all departments or people or other agencies will you be talking to, or you're already in the process of talking to? Like, would you be what kind of stakeholders or general people?
Like, for example, this street leads to Anganwadi, right? So would you be also would you be involving Anganwadi workers here? Okay, at least I need a yes or a no.
Okay, Aishwarya has written yes. So yeah. Yes, Surat has also written yes. Okay, so I think, does anyone think we
Who
can
else?
talk to Raji and her kids first of all, because people like them are the primary users of the street.
Who does the road belong to? We have to consult them. We have to consult traffic police. Who else?
Okay, Surat has written people living in the nearby area around half a kilometer. Anyone else? Who in the government will you be consulting with? What kind of department, or like? Aishwarya has written ASHA workers.
Yes.
And the municipal.
Yeah, just to and what role would they play? ASHA workers? Can they help us connect to these people who live in the settlements? Probably, yeah, right? These ASHA workers.
Yes. Yeah, they can easily access with the residents, because they are taking care of the health activities of the each residents, and they daily go with the houses, and so they can easily access.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Also, Madhura, because the road is of municipal, so the road department, Kohima just wrote. Local municipal officer.
Yeah. There could be some stakeholders, like, there is a local corporator there or MLA there who has, that local representation. So these could act as like the local leaders. So even during design, even you mentioned about these ASHA workers, they are very important because, they know where these people come from, what problems they face, they know them personally, right? So these people are very important during design. During implementation, yes, all these road departments, even traffic police, are very important while implementation. And post implementation, what happens? We have to look at implementation, the maintenance of it. Who will maintain it? So one idea is that, when we involve community around, when we involve the residents around, sometimes they only tend to, take this ownership of, okay, we will maintain, or that kind of a thing. So these are different ways. Also, sometimes there are some NGOs, so NGOs who would like to do this, even to help us implement. We want to do some sort of testing around what happens if we paint these walls. Can we involve residents? Can we involve different NGOs? So I think NGOs are also some people who can help us, even post implementation, during implementation. Yeah.
So during
any
Madhura, we can also involve the local college students or art college students who can help us paint on the walls, or think about some kind of sidewalk painted games or something near the seatings.
And then, of course, someone to look at all these services.
Yeah, I think earlier we
Who
discussed
would that
about
be?
making the services underground, so all that maintenance.
Who?
Someone has to give us an answer, at least in the chat, if not.
Okay, anyway, so we need the corporation on board. If the city has development authority, they have to be on board. If PWD has to be on board, right? So all of these stakeholders are required to for an easy thing. But apart from this, while we are designing, we also need some experts, right, to help us, guide in terms of how to design. So probably these experts are also part of our, team while we do this. So I think, yeah, I mean, we come to end of this exercise. So overall, while just the idea is to understand that while we are doing any project in a city, what is that overall thing that we have to look at? It's from when we are doing it for children and caregivers, we just can't think about having a seating space or having a play equipment to ensure there is play. It's not about that, but about how many these senses are we giving them, how many different experiences are we providing. So like when we also mentioned about green, I mean, I would just like to ensure that we also say that, these green, which is accessible for young children. So that makes it, specifically for young children. Green, which is to children.
We're almost at the end of our session.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Hello everyone, back. Welcome back to the main session. I hope you had a great time looking at different stories and finding out what to do in such scenarios. So let's move on to what we learned in this group, or what we sort of did as part of our breakout room activity. So let me. So I think I'll start with mine. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so we were group 1. I hope you can see my slide, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we were group 1, and we had a story of Raji, and she walks through this street to with her toddler and her infant in her hand. So every day she walks through the street because she has to drop her toddler to the Anganwadi. And while doing that, she told us about that she gets tired during summers while she's walking, and her child keeps on running towards the vehicles. At night she's scared to walk. So this was her story, and then we looked at different kinds of issues, maybe because of which she's facing that, and then we came down to solutions. So now I would like to invite Aishwarya to talk about what solutions did we look at, and what did we learn through this exercise. Aishwarya, if you could unmute yourself.
Hi all. So we have discussed and derived some points regarding the to help Raji and her child. So we have come to know that there are some points that Raji and her child can't be able to walk through the streets. So the suggestions came from our group is that we have to ensure the visibility of the road, and there are some points that she has to be get more clean paths. So we need to provide proper walking area. So there are some proper walkways, and that should be, and the drain should be covered in a proper manner, and some railings for the child who can for ensuring the path clearance, and also to attract the child towards walking. And also if it's a continuous walking, so there should be a green space, and should be shaded spaces for both the caretaker and the child. So it will help them to relax and see around their places, and also have some fun while walking. And also we have to provide security measures like CCTV cameras, also proper lighting, because normally these kind of the caretakers and the child only goes in the daylight, but we have to provide more spaces and more facility to go in the night also. So everyone can walk and can come to the society in any time if they want to. So that kind of thing we can provide. And there should be some wall paintings so that it will attract to the child also, and also a measure to some the drivers or the vehicles who can see that there should be some curves and edges are there. So it should be a security kind of security measures we can provide. And also we can I missed something. Mathura, can you help me?
Yeah, so no, I think you covered more or less everything. Thanks for that presentation. But yeah, we looked at, we did a bit of deep dive on, like she needed spaces to relax and pause, right? So then then we discussed that, is making a bench or putting a bench enough? No, right? So how can we design these pause spaces to have shade, to have some seatings in a way that caregivers can interact within themselves? These seatings at different height where these children also can sit, their caregivers can also sit, and and then of course we discussed about how these spaces should be accessible for differently abled people as well as children. So having ramps, having these footpaths with appropriate slopes. So how are these overall help in integrating or designing the street for from young children's perspective? So yeah, overall we discussed on how these solutions can be framed, and then looked at different stakeholders who we can involve to make this design work, because it's something which is important. So thank you, Group 1. We had a great discussion there, and thanks Aishwarya for presenting.
Thank
I
you,
would
Mathura,
now
for giving me this opportunity. Thanks a lot.
Great. I would now request Group 2 to present their work.
Sure. Thank you, Madhura. So, hi, everyone. This is Anushri. We have a Group 2, and we've looked at a scenario where a grandmother, Shanti, is taking her grandson, Akash, to this Anganwadi every day. And therefore, we've looked at various types of issues that they're facing around this Anganwadi, and how some of the solutions, which are a lot of specific solutions to their age group, can be, implemented. So I would request Team DULT, Anne and Sushmita, to explain these solutions.
So basically, when we looked into the space itself in front of the Anganwadi, one thing that came into mind was about the handrails itself. So for a young child to tread those stairs by themselves, it would be difficult. So one of the proposals that we looked at were the handrails at 2 feet height, so the child can scale those steps independently. Also, the kind of material that is used, so softscape and hardscape flooring that can actually stimulate the child. The seating area, so the waiting area that we wanted to look at was having a variation of adult and child size seating, which is resistant to weather, and also the edges, that the way they need to be treated, so a rounded edges so that they're not sharp, and also cluster of seats, so you have a lot of interaction between the ITCs. Also, we looked at community gardens for like sensory experiences, where it could be like herb garden, which can be taken care of by the community itself. So basically, this was based off on our learnings in Bangalore, where we saw that for the Anganwadi going children actually lived in a very tiny cramped spaces, mainly in slum areas where they had no access to open spaces or like green spaces. So Anganwadi itself, the premises could provide that opportunity for them. We also saw like interactive elements, like learn by play elements, which were like scribble walls or like hopscotch, like floor-based interventions, which could also facilitate learning. And also the railings that can be put up could be like an interactive railing, like wall-based abacus and knees, which can facilitate hand-eye coordination. Also, the sand pits itself, so the play area that can cater to these children, the equipment that is more tailored to young children. Is there something you would want to add?
No, I think Sushmita has done a fabulous job covering it all. Yeah.
Thank you, Sushmita and I think yes. So this is what our Group 2 learning was, mainly around how Anganwadi can become like a place where they can access nature, if not around their homes, and these design of elements to be more playful and more interactive. Thank you. I request Group 3 to present their findings.
Yeah, thanks, Anushree. I'll just share my screen. Please let me know once you can see.
Yes, we can, Vishakha.
Okay, thank you. So we were Group 3 and we had participants from Indore, Coimbatore, Tirupur, Nagpur and Rourkela, and we had a wonderful discussion around this. So here, so the scenario was about Radha and her family, Radha and her husband and their first toddler. Radha is pregnant with her second child, and how they travel to the maternity hospital. So they take a weekly trip for their appointments, and they depend on bus transit, and it's quite uncomfortable for them. And we had listed down different issues around this scenario, and the group has come up with quite a good list of solutions. And I request the representative from Indore to sum up what we have found from this scenario.
Hello everyone. So together we came up to these solutions. Basically, we found out that the bus stop is very much nearer to the road, and we also saw that it's very chaotic. There's a very less buffer space and a lot of pollution and no greenery. So the solutions that we thought were we could have digital information boards, we could have a colorful railing so that we can ensure safety of toddlers, and the width of the waiting space could be enhanced, or it could be wider, and also the sitting could be designed for the youngs, and the walls could be little more attractive and colorful. Maybe to have signages and learnings or marking, something like that. And later on we also discussed about making it an empty friendly passage, and introducing pedestrian crossings or refuge islands and speed controls, and also lighting, the amendment of lighting and thermal comfort, etc. could be done. Solid waste management also we discussed. Thank you.
Vishakha, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks, Vandita. Yeah, I was thanking intern from Indore Smart City, and I was just trying to sum up what we had done. So we were thinking of different solutions which can enhance comfort and transit, all of it within the bus stop. We were also trying to see how this can be well connected to the surrounding facilities through wide footpaths, and yeah, as she was mentioning, how it can be made more NMT friendly. And we also talked about how this can be more smart in terms of providing digital information, waiting time, all of this. So this was a very good discussion, and yeah, now I request Group 4 to present the scenario. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishakha. Hello, everyone. I'm Shrutisha, and we were looking at this scenario with Asha, who is a 3-year-old toddler who goes to the nearby park with her grandfather every evening, and how she searches for spaces for her age group to play, and her grandfather looks for resting spaces. and he talks about the stories of his age, his time, and his variety of flowers, birds, and trees he used to see on ground, and how he used to play traditional games. But she is not able to see all that within the park. So this was overall our scenario, and we came up with interesting solutions. And so I'll actually request Anushka from Jabalpur Smart City to present this set of solutions that we have come up with. Over to you, Anushka. Or anyone else, if there's some issue with Anushka's network. Anita ma'am or Patel sir.
Yeah, hi, this is Anita from Cochin Smart Mission Limited. From the images, it was very evident that the access spaces lacked sufficient footpaths and safe and a buffer. And apart from that, also traffic calming measures were required. So a level difference is also required. We couldn't see any details of lighting, so lighting also needed to be ensured. Apart from that, the park looked too brown to be fun, so we wanted to add a lot more landscape, a lot more colors, flowers, maybe mounds for interaction, maybe also some areas that can have water elements. So the three major points that we wanted to note here is the interaction with nature, which can be done by landscaping, flowering plants, and sand pits. There's a lot of sand, but not sufficient dedicated sand areas to play. Also, the surfaces which are there could be made a little more safer to play, like maybe rubberized areas or sand or landscaping, and apart from that also some shading because there's a lot of heat there and not enough shade, both for the play equipment as well as for the grandparents who may require seating. There was also age appropriate play, so for younger children equipment like toddler swings and merry-go-rounds, but also opportunities for play as family, like maybe family swings or merry-go-rounds that can be accessed by all people of all abilities. Also the material used for the equipment may be fiber or plastic or rubber, and probably more flexible so that they are safer to play. Yeah, so these were the major points that we found. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Anita ma'am. So we looked at different solutions and deep dive into three specific areas of solutions, and then talked about a variety of aspects like materials, dimensions, or the kind of materials and the arrangement of them, and who are the users. So we had a very fruitful discussion, and I thank you all from Group 4 to be active participants. Thank you.
Great. Thanks everyone for their presentations. And just before we start summing up, I was thinking that we should probably have a group photograph. So if I can request everyone to switch on their videos, we can have a picture screenshot. Okay, so Vandita, are we good?
Yeah, a few people are still turning it on, so just give it a second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess we have it for our record. I hope we get to meet in person soon. And so yeah, I think I would now request Nandini to take forward summarizing the session.
Actually, so okay, thank you, Madhura, and thanks everyone. I know we're a little bit over time, and appreciate you all sticking around. But I would like to, before just closing, request Andrea also if she could share any reflections from the session or any insights that you would want to pass on to the team.
Thank you, Nandini, and thank you everyone for staying a little bit over time. I really enjoyed the group discussions. I really learned also a lot about designing. I think that, of course, you know, I'm a social worker and public policy maker and design, and designing is just not my area of expertise, so I really learned a lot. Thank you for allowing me and having me in your groups. And I think that probably the challenge will be after you do all of these amazing things on how do we promote those behaviors and how do we make people actually taking care of those things and using all the things that you are planning to do. But that is another discussion. I would just love to invite you to go deeper and to read more about early childhood development and the well-being of infant toddlers and caregivers. I know that probably as design is far away from my area, probably talking about the brain development and all those things might be a little bit far from your comfort zone, but that is the idea. I mean, like everything that you are doing is actually impacting babies, toddlers, and caregivers. And I'm sorry that I'm being super passionate, but I think that you are the ones that can make the change happen and convince your mayors and your leaders to actually invest on this. So as I'm going to explore more on designing and how we can make cities better from the built environment, I really invite you to do the same with the early childhood development. So thank you for having me. I always enjoy a lot listening to you and with all these discussions. So thank you, Nandini. Thank you, Smart Cities Mission, and of course, the BBLF Indian team as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you for the passionate speech at the end. So yes, I think this is all for the session. I know that many of you probably have other meetings to go to, so I'll just be very quick just to say that a reminder that we have the fourth workshop in this series next week on Tuesday that will focus more on tactical intervention. So many of the cities are planning this as part of the cohort phase, and we'll get a chance to go deeper into that next week on Tuesday. So please do join us for that session. And to close, I'd just like to say a big thank you again, obviously to the Smart Cities Mission, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and the whole team there for hosting us, and to Andrea Torres from the Bernard Van Leer Foundation and the whole team at BBLF for all of your support, and of course to all of the cities for joining and being so enthusiastic and participating so fully, and of course to our team at WR India as well for all of their work on this. So thank you everyone. Have a good evening and see you next week.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you everyone.